So this is a video for my first campaign I ran. Seeing as the last campaign recap I did in one NPC voice, I don't quite like that. I don't like sticking to one voice for so long. It's not usually in my nature. But this one's more of a general thing, and hopefully some DMs or anyone that reads this will get some ideas for stuff, or some tips, or whatever. Let's see, where to start. So this campaign started with me and one player who played Thea. She's the same player that played Ella in the last campaign that I recorded of. In her backstory, she decided that she was the adopted child of the king of a royal family. And due to her writing down that she had 16 other siblings, it brought in a little bit more challenge, seeing as the more I learned about elves, and especially how they usually don't have a lot of kids, and then learning that the reason why they don't is a lot of lore based in Dungeons and Dragons, it had to put in a lot of work in my mind of what end of the world event is happening that so many elves are being born. So, and a lot of questions of, okay, will she actually meet all her siblings in this campaign? But for the main part, she only gave a little bit of information on some of the siblings that she had. She had her oldest brother, which would be the crowned prince, who just was aware of her, didn't really do much, and just wasn't mean to her, where a lot of her siblings were. There was the youngest sibling other than her, which would have been her best friend kind of thing, was always nice to her, would be your friend, and was glad that she had a younger sister kind of thing. And then she had one that was somewhere in the later half of the 16, but so relatively close to Thea's age. But Thea's player said that this would be her evil sister. So I went with it. It's kind of where a lot of the times I might think of, well, are they really evil? I just decided, alright, they're evil. And I kind of went from there. In her backstory, she talked about a friend that she had that died, and that Thea didn't quite fit in with the royal family, seeing as how the royal family had pearl white hair and blue eyes, and Thea had brown hair and brown eyes, or green eyes. I'd have to look, but so in order to have her fit in as the royal family, we gave her a magic ring that simply, while wearing it, would change her hair color. So it was a nice little idea to get a very minor magical item up quick, and led to a lot of opportunities. And had a lot of fun with it, I think. So she decided to pick a ranger as her class. So for what she did is that she said that Thea decided that she didn't like the city life and didn't like, being a royal in a family that doesn't accept her. So she pretty much, by the time she became an adult, she decided to leave the capital, head out into the woods, and stay there for a few hundred years. So we decided to set up there that she found, I like this player. This player's always does really good backstories. And describes the scenery of having 2 waterfalls and all that. We also figured to give her a companion during this time, to make it so that way it wasn't just her by herself. for the most part, yeah, she was, and kind of learning on her own. You know, we were starting out the campaign at level 1, so, you know, so it made it, I was like starting at level 1, makes a chance to give him a chance to grow and all that. And this being my first time running a campaign, gave me a chance to take it slow. So we decided to give her a tortoise as her friend or companion for this time. A tortoise that she saved when it was young, and raised to adulthood. So that way, seeing as in real life we've got tortoises that lasts a long time, it's kind of fantasy tortoises would definitely be something that would survive a long time. So even if this campaign continued more than it did without fizzling out like it did, she'd have the chance to come back to her little hut near the waterfall and have her turtle friend that she named Delcy, in remembrance of her best friend that passed away, like a mixture of her name and I can't remember if it was like a mixture of the name or if it was just that, or the place had a name that was a mixture of her name and her friend's name, but something like that. So I enjoyed doing Delcy because it was a turtle. I'd have a slow voice. I'd, Mama, I like, I enjoyed the happy, slow turtle that's, I missed you, Mama. Anytime that she'd come back to her little place in the forest, she'd have bushes set up so that way there'd be food for her and all that. And was a nice way to kind of start off the campaign of a good place for her to return to and all that. So after setting up the talking a lot, so after setting up the backstory of that and where she was, we kind of just started out of me slowly building the world around her. She was in a forest that contained, so it would be a very large forest that contained the royal capital, and that would be about all for the cities in there. She'd be a couple days away by foot. So, although Thea didn't know it and hasn't known it since I haven't told her, but if you watch the video, now you know. Due to the proximity and how I've built up the Elven Kingdom, there's always a lot of spies that the Elven King has. It's watching out in the trees and all that, and her adoptive father was very loving, so would always get news of her or anything like that, and which would be why she would relatively be safe and would be unharmed for all this time and well known. Well, not well known. I don't know what I meant, but yeah. So, but that comes into play later. I've kind of hinted at it, although once we get later on in the campaign, you'll see what I did with some of it. But we started off the campaign with her setting up everything before she left, giving Delcy any more food that she had ready, getting food preserves, and heading out. I kind of had it set up so that way outside of the Elven Kingdom, the way she was going would be a human kingdom. I'm very bad at names, so a lot of them weren't named, especially in the front when it was just me and her role-playing Dungeons and Dragons. So she sets out, finally leaves the forest, and as her first encounter that I set up, as a first level player, I figure that it'll be a couple of goblins, and after running one session of the first Mines of Fandolphin several times during Adventures League, it's kind of figuring out that, yeah, you can do with the goblins, have them be from anywhere of bumbling idiots to trained SEAL Force 9 kind of stuff. These ones would be abandoned outcasts, and I'm not sure if at that moment I figured that they were either kicked out of a tribe. Yeah, I think I figured that they were kicked out of the tribe. I later retconned it in my mind that the tribe had been killed or destroyed. But I just had these two goblins, and because Thea doesn't speak Goblin, just comes across the two goblins arguing or talking back and forth in my goblin voice of, and having it be a relatively easy encounter for her to kill one, fight the other one, is what I had originally planned. But like in all things D&D, players come up with their own stuff. So, instead of fighting the two goblins that have nothing but a weapon, no equipment or anything else, she shows herself to them. They're hostile, they're not quite ready to attack, but very cautious. As she hands over them some food, we decided that in 400 years she must have grabbed some squirrels or some rabbits or something like that that has with her, that she gives over to them for food. She tries to talk with them but doesn't know the language. They're very hesitant about it all, so she eventually just leaving them behind the food that they greedily devour, goblin style. It's so I always have fun with the goblins. They're kind of my favorite. And after that, we go about going through the days. I keep track of time on a sheet to have the world turn around her and stuff like that. She travels a few days, reaches a road, meets up with Farmer Wick. So, just good old town farmer. You can just call me Wick. Got my friend Duke, my dog Duke. So, give him a nice dog to be friendly with and a bodyguard. Didn't have a name for him at the moment, and asked her. She said, he calls himself Star, so we went with that. I think I give him a name later, I'd have to look it up, but just a friendly old guy, happy to have more company on the road. I say stuff about there could be bandits, stuff like that. Try to build the world around her. But yeah, I think that was all that we did the first session, where the first session she actually made it to town. I think we called it Terra as a port town, because I had thought up the idea of doing a recently discovered island that would have been monsters would have been in control there. Instead of like the normal D&D, it would have been, well, these are monsters that are not, good monsters that aren't on the alignment chart and stuff like this. And this was going to be my setup before we got more players. We didn't really get much more players, so the campaign didn't really ever go to Krakoa, which I made. So I ended up using that for my pre-COVID group, so all the recap stuff was there. And it would have been 5 years after this campaign, so a lot of things would have happened with Thea that the player doesn't quite know about, but I'll tell you what I can. But yeah, we had that, and with just the two of us, it made an interesting interesting situation. And where I'd give the chance to have her name a lot of the stuff, or you know, have her build the world around her as well. So, when she goes into the city of Terra, she's trying to find a place to stay for the night, that, seeing as she doesn't have, like, any money for just being in the woods all the time. She finds an inn, named by another friend of mine, that named it the, Stumbling Pony, or Drunken Pony? No, I think Drunken Pony. It's something like that, where it's Prancy Pony-ish, but not quite. But she talks to the owner of the pub, that when looking at the names, she asks her what name she comes up with. She looks around, finds the orange drink that we have, and goes, Oreg. So, a little fun there. Comes up with later fun there. I'll get to that in a few sessions. So we came up with Oreg Strongarm as the typical dwarf, as I do the typical dwarf accent, which is just a good old guy who's running a place by himself. It's a good old friendly man. Yeah, you can sleep on the bench. You know, friendly enough, doesn't see any suspicion in letting a stranger sleep on a bench with no pay and all that, and became a good friend over the campaign to Thea, as I feel like a lot of happy barkeeps in Dungeons & Dragons tend to be. Because it's, at least in my campaigns, that's always what it seems like. So that was kind of the first session of what was later dubbed the Elven Kingdom campaign. Originally it was discovering Krakoa, but never actually got to Krakoa or went in that direction like many things do. So, and we used Krakoa, didn't like having 2 obsidian portals of Krakoa in the name, so we switched it to the Elven Kingdom campaign, because we discussed a bit about that kingdom. So, yeah. Hopefully it was fun. Oh yeah, one thing is that I definitely took away from that session was that player is friendly to goblins. So I made sure I'd remember that to use it against her later. So, yeah.